Welcome to today's HR webinar on optimizing employee journey. We're going to dive deep into AI-driven onboarding, engagement, and the best strategies for retention. So in this webinar, we'll explore AI and data and how they can contribute to the onboarding process and to improving everyday engagement. Really at the heart of this webinar is how can you create more engaged employees and turn them into long-term talent for your company. This webinar is going to be recorded and we'll send out the recording afterwards. First of all, a big thank you to Enterprise Islands and HR News who are sponsoring this panel. Enterprise Islands awards Irish companies from startups to SMEs and multinationals to grow and scale and helps Irish businesses to become global leaders in their field. I'm Katie Stoddart. I'm the host for today's panel. I'm the founder and CEO of the Focus Bee, a leadership coach, trainer, and keynote speaker, and the podcast host of the Focus Bee Show. Before I introduce you to the fantastic panel that we have today, let's do a very brief, basic AI poll to see how are you using AI. Are you using it as a simple admin tool, in a strategic, game-changing way, barely at all, maybe waiting for the tech to develop, or as a toy for more personal projects? So I'll just wait a couple of moments to see what responses come through in terms of how you are using AI. So we're getting some fantastic answers here as a simple admin tool. Some of you are using it in a game-changing way. There's still 20 odd seconds left for you to fill in the poll. This helps us to have an idea where you're at so we can also tailor today's webinar. Okay, very few people are only using it as a toy or for personal projects, so it's being used within the business. Just 5 seconds left. If you haven't yet filled in the poll, the results are becoming pretty clear. Fantastic. So you can all see right now, if you look at the results, most of you are using it as an admin tool and some in a strategic, game-changing way. This is really fantastic information for today. So let's see who we have on the panel today. Very excited to be with these three panelists. First, we have Jake Mealy, the Chief Data Solutions Officer at Welliba. Jake has spent over 10 years helping businesses to interpret data so that they can make more impactful decisions. He has a PhD in bioengineering from Trinity College Dublin, and he's an expert in drawing insight and narrative from data streams, something not many of us can do, really drawing these insights from it. And at Welliba, Jake uses AI technology to help organizations to understand both internal and external employee sentiment without the need of surveys. So a bit more around Welliba. So recently, Welliba Accelerate Technology is this groundbreaking solution. It's trusted by big brands such as Louis Vuitton and many others, and it helps to transform people's strategy by delivering deep, actionable insights into your workforce without the need, once more, for these expensive surveys. So by leveraging advanced AI to harness publicly available data, Accelerate converts raw data into strategic recommendations and benchmarks. So this helps organizations to make better informed decisions, and this boosts engagement, addresses retention challenges, and also helps to foster employee development. So Jake, thank you for being on the panel today. We also have with us Claire Moncrief, who's a senior principal consultant at Workhuman. Claire is an experienced global HR leader with a very strong focus on innovation and future-oriented thinking. She's an expert in transformation, change, and talent management, and has extensive experience in technology from her roles in different companies such as Nokia and Talent Neuron. And Claire has over 20 years in HR and professional services. When she's not at work, she's an avid hiker and mountaineer. And so a few more words on Workhuman. Workhuman is the #1 world's biggest employee recognition platform and a pioneer in the space for over 25 years, so over 2 decades of experience in this space. The platform enhances the employee experience for almost 8 million humans worldwide, and they're available in almost 200 countries, 193, with over 40 languages. serving more than 100 million moments of recognition through Workhuman Cloud. Their latest launch is Human Intelligence, an AI-powered suite of tools that helps business leaders use once more this rich data of recognition to provide new insights and improve decision-making and boost business performance. Welcome, Claire. Fantastic to have you here today.
Thank you so much.
Last but not least, we have Vincent Odenog, the co-founder and CCO of SocialTalent. Vincent helps companies build world-class hiring teams through smarter training and enablement. Before working with hiring excellence, Vincent worked in sales. And before that, he wanted to be a filmmaker. He even has an IMDb profile to prove it. Nowadays, Vincent leads partnerships and internal operations at SocialTalent, still telling stories, just with a bit more data. About SocialTalent, SocialTalent is the world's #1 learning platform for enabling hiring excellence. So they provide recruiters and interviewers with access to industry-leading experts, AI-driven practice, and the flow of work enablement. They upskill talent acquisition teams, hiring managers, candidates, employees with expert-led training, practice, and resources for recruiting. So this platform has been designed for the modern learner. It's easy to use. It's AI-enabled, scalable, inclusive, meaning that everyone can access and benefit from the latest industry insights. And it's trusted by loads of organizations worldwide, hundreds of them, including Lego and Ericsson. So SocialTalent is the choice for talent acquisition teams that are committed to hiring excellence. So excited to have all of you on the panel today, and we've got a lot to cover, so I'm excited to dive in. When it comes to employee journey, it makes sense to look at first the onboarding process. This is where the employee journey begins. Before we dive into today's discussion on this topic, let's do a brief poll regarding onboarding. So what aspect of onboarding is your company using AI to help with? Automating paperwork, personalized learning and training, answering new hire questions, onboarding analytics, or all of the above? So let's have a look. So far, some on automating paperwork, personalized learning and training. Fantastic. So we just have 20 more seconds regarding the poll for you to fill in the poll. So far, none for onboarding analytics. This is interesting. And these answers will help to inform the discussion we're going to have on the topic of onboarding. Fantastic. So as you can see, none on onboarding analytics, but quite a few regarding personalized learning or training, but also automating paperwork. Fantastic. So let's dive in. A great place to start is, how can technology be used to create a more personalized and efficient onboarding process? This is quite a vast question, but Jake, what are your thoughts on this? How can technology be used to create a more personalized and efficient onboarding process?
Yeah, I think what I'm really interested in that question is around the word efficient, and particularly looking at the results of this poll here, where we've had 0% respondents saying they're using it for onboarding analytics. And I think that's really, really important, is to connect these two dots. Is like, we're bringing people into our organization, but what outcomes do we want to achieve now that these people have joined us? So, you know, for example, if you're onboarding a sales team, you might be very interested in how productive that sales team is going to be within 6 months of onboarding, within 12 months of onboarding. And when you're designing an onboarding process to bring this team up to speed, how will you know whether that onboarding process is good, bad, or indifferent? So I used to work in a large organization where it used to take 3 quarters for the average salesperson to reach break-even revenue generation. And we knew that our competitors were doing the same thing in 2 quarters. So, we were losing a march in terms of how we were onboarding our people. And I think that insight is really, really key. If you can understand what you're trying to achieve with your onboarding process, then through analytics, then that can inform tailoring that strategy. But for me, it's really about connecting those two dots. Is what is the metric that we want to achieve, and then using that to help inform your strategy.
So once more, using analytics to inform the strategy, which is really your core strengths. Vincent, what are your thoughts on this?
I agree with Jake, but I also think we should be thinking about what does the employee want to achieve. There's a risk when you look at efficiency that you start making lots of reasonable things that you should do to make the process more efficient, and you forget that there's a human at the center of it. And if you think about, if you ask somebody the story of their lives, right, they'll tend to talk in transitions. I was born here, I went to school here, I got married, I had kids, I lived and I died. They're all transitions. So people tend to remember their experience and their engagement with an organization in these peak moments or troughs. And you've got to make sure that onboarding is not just about an efficient process, which I think AI can really, really do, and can make it, and you should tie that to metrics and an understanding of what you want to get as an organization. But you should use the AI to make sure that you have time to make that a special experience for the employee coming on board. Like we've all experienced, certainly I have. I remember starting work with BT, my last work before I didn't work for anybody else but myself. And I arrived in, and not only did I not have a chair, I didn't have a laptop for 10 days, and I had to, get all the applications necessary myself. That's a really inefficient experience for both the company, because it's delayed my ramp up and onboarding, but also a really bad experience for me. And I left within 6 months. So I think we need to think both from both the company perspective and the employee perspective. How good an experience is it for them? Because that's going to drive their engagement. It's the first part of the relationship with the company and with your colleagues and manager or whatever. Need to make sure we have time for that really special experience.
So putting the human at the center of this, I'm sure, Claire, you have some thoughts around this.
Yeah, and actually, I'd like to play off what you just gave us as an example, Vincent, which is that we know how important first impressions of companies are. And we have data to show that recognition can have a huge impact on new hire retention. So you mentioned you left within 6 months. In fact, we recently introduced as part of our admin hub the ability to create automated welcome awards for new hires. Now, that may feel impersonal and non-human, but actually they can be very personalized to each individual. And this removes the admin burden, but also creates that human experience of feeling welcomed, and lets the employee know that all the effort that's gone into their hiring process, and let's, be honest, that's usually pretty extensive time-wise, it's a lot of investment. We want them to feel welcome and like they made the right choice in joining our company, and we're delighted to have them. By the way, it also sends a notification to peers so they can add their own message to the award. And our results of research have shown that new hires are 4 times more likely to stay through the first year if they've seen an increased level of recognition when they first join a company. So a really optimal lever to pull in the onboarding process to bring that more personalized, but also efficient process to bear.
Yes, recognition is absolutely key when it comes to the engagement, but also to people actually staying and the retention. I'm curious, when it comes to onboarding, what innovative tools and techniques can be used to make onboarding more engaging? Maybe Claire, on this note, because you said you started to incorporate some new processes in place. What tools and techniques can you recommend?
Yes, well, in the recognition world, I think this automated welcome message can be a really powerful one. So again, it's something that it's a bit of a mass customized approach where you can take the tool to reach out to all of those new hires. And I'll talk a little bit more later on when we get into the engagement piece about how you can use the data starting from that very first day to inform and engage those employees longer term as well. So I think there are a number of innovative tools and techniques to make onboarding engaging, but certainly recognition is one of them.
Absolutely.
I think there's even some of the obstacles to adopting some of the AI tools that are out there, and there are loads, is that it's a big company event to do it. What we've seen with mostly with recruiters, but also HR teams, is that you can use something like ChatGPT, which is available to most, well, maybe not everybody, but even if you think your employees don't have it, I guarantee they have it on their mobile phones. But when somebody and onboarding starts pre-boarding, right? There's a huge drop off between offer acceptance and actually joining a company, and in that period, there's a lot you can do with just ChatGPT, such as sending people pre-boarding kind of task lists on what they should do in terms of connecting with their colleagues on LinkedIn. Give them guides to what are the local restaurants around the office that you could go and visit. The commute to work. ChatGPT can do this in an instant. No recruiter or HR person is doing this on a personalized level for anybody if you're hiring thousands of people. But you can do it with ChatGPT in an instant, and it seems like you are really caring about somebody when they're coming on board, and you're giving them those touch points which stop them drifting away, maybe to a counter offer, or to stay in their organization, or to try to go somewhere else. So I think there's lots that we can do as individual ICs using AI just to make the experience of what we do today much better and much more personalized, which will feel like you really care about the employee before and during their onboarding.
All about creating a more personalized experience. Jake, what would you like to add to what Claire and Vincent have just shared?
Yeah, I think picking up on Vincent's really important point about the drop-off rate and understanding that your onboarding process is your company's welcome mat, but it doesn't exist in isolation. It's your company's welcome mat is on a street full of welcome mats. And so how do we make sure that your welcome mat is as best as it possibly can be, that you're presenting the best? Because people talk about their onboarding experiences online. It's one of the key things that young graduates will discuss on forums, in Glassdoor reviews. They'll be like, yeah, this aspect was good. And it goes back to Vincent's original point about making the process feel, individualized and making that experience a good one for the employee. But I think, really understanding what your competitors are doing in this space is equally important. And that's another place that AI can really, really help. You can get insights on what that neighbor down the street who might be in danger of poaching some of your talent before they get in onto your welcome mat is doing, and making sure you have that understanding, I think is really important from a strategic perspective.
And how do you think we can use AI then to capture some of those peak moments? Because Vincent, you shared that we can share some resources that we get through ChatGPT. So this is a way of showing some recognition and welcoming. But how about capturing some of these peak moments?
Yeah, I think there are tools out there that will help you catch, but it's hard to catch the relationship and personal stuff. But I think what AI can do is allow you time to it allows you to prepare the ground for these opportunities to happen. One, it takes away, another thing that happens at the start of somebody's employment is a lot of forms to be filled out. It's hassle for the manager, hassle for the employee. AI can take away an awful lot of that. It can take away a huge amount of the admin. What does that leave? It leaves time for managers and employees and peers to get to know each other, to have some peak moments, to think about, well, what would be nice for this employee when they start? What can we, but all of that takes time. And it's actually unreasonable, if you think about it, to do that for maybe 50 people who are joining next week. But it becomes reasonable if AI can create what's going to be important to Vincent, what's going to be important to Greg, to Claire or Jake or Katie. AI can do that and create. Like I was reading somewhere that millennials particularly want a highly designed and structured employment prepared for them. That they want to know exactly what's expected of them, what they should be doing, who should they be connecting with. Not that they say they need it to be handheld through everything, but they just want it to be structured and organized. I think a lot of us will have experienced, joining a company and a company almost expecting you to land and run straight away. So I think we're able to create make the ground fertile for those peak experiences. How we capture those, I think there's probably, certainly sentiment surveys that we can do, pulse surveys, but I think also AI, there are ways, particularly if you have chatbots and that employees can interact with, the tone and sentiment that they interact with those chatbots can be measured, and we can preemptively see where people are dropping off or morale is dropping. So I think there's pulse surveys, and there are chatbots that could be really, really powerful in determining whether or not people are feeling those peak moments or are starting to feel like they're in troughs.
So what you're essentially saying is, by automating also a lot of the paperwork and the onboarding process, it leaves more space to reflect on what would make it a more personalized onboarding, more human, and creating those more peak moments of the onboarding phase. Claire, what are your thoughts around this topic?
Well, when I think about capturing peak moments during onboarding, I know a lot of companies use new hire surveys, and I think AI can probably help there as well, in the sense that, these types of data collection, and, Jake may be able to add more color to this, it really allows companies to capture, ask specific questions, but understand what that experience has been like. Are we delivering on our promise? We told people it would be a certain experience when they join us. This is our EVP in the market. We say our employee value proposition looks like this. When you join a company, you expect to experience that right from day one, right during your onboarding. And so is the onboarding experience living up to those expectations? Now, again, recognition provides some data to support that, but enabling onboarding surveys also helps. And I think these days you can do that in a much more automated and ongoing kind of way. So it's not necessarily one-off, but maybe it's, once a month for the first 3 months, it's 1 or 2 questions here and there. I know that, and aggregating that data and interrogating it to understand whether you're delivering on expectations really makes a difference in terms of reacting quickly, and making sure that you pivot to design the experience you want people to have if they're not having it.
Jake.
Yeah, I think there's 2 big problems with pulse surveying or directly asking people about their experience of onboarding. The first one is that, particularly if you're hiring graduates or early stage careers, is these people will be coming into companies without much context or without much to compare to. So they might be, they might not even be sure themselves how to benchmark what they're experiencing, right? And that's a very human reaction to being asked those kind of questions. And then the second issue is, of course, you can ask your employees how their onboarding experience is, and you can continue to ask them, but that insight will always exist in that vacuum. You will only ever see your welcome mat. And that's why I go back to my previous answer, where it's really important to be able to compare yourself compared to what is happening in other companies. And that's where you'll get that rich insight of, okay, here's a specific thing that our employees are really enjoying about their onboarding that we don't see from data coming from other companies. And so that's something, to Claire's point, that we should be, maybe, speaking more about or adding as an employee brand proposition. And then the corollary of that is, here's a sticky point in our onboarding process that employees are complaining about or having a difficulty with, and we don't see that in our competitor organizations. So that's something we need to fix. So again, it's about taking those insights out of your vacuum. And again, that's where AI can help. AI data gathering is really what's unlocking that insight into what's going around us.
Can I tell a quick story? If it's okay. I was in Nashville recently, and we took an Uber, and we got the top rated driver on Uber in Nashville. And we were wondering why is it the top rated? Didn't know why, but he was the top rated. And the whole process, of course, with Uber is brilliant. You click your button and it comes, you choose your preferences and all that kind of stuff. Got in the cab, and nothing particularly special about the cab, but the experience is all the tech was perfect. But when we got in the cab, the guy, he started to play music, and what he did was, a very charismatic character, he played his life story on a playlist for us, and he sang. So he sang about his relationships and he sang about his breakup, and it was a roller coaster of emotion. And actually, when we got to the hotel, we had run out of time. We stayed in the car to listen to the last song so we could finish the story. Now, that's a peak moment in an Uber experience. The facilitation of that was the technology, and Uber will have amazing AI working out what was good about, was the journey efficient, was it on time, all that stuff. I think it's harder to capture the really, really important stuff about human relationships and what really makes things special. I think that's I think there needs to be humans in that part of the process to somehow capture how you do it. But I think with Workhuman and Welliba, you're going to get, I think there are ways of tapping into, what Jake is saying, what makes people actually happy? What's that really, really important thing that people care about? I'll finish, and I'm sorry, I'm awful for telling the stories, but we used to go to Spain every year for our Christmas party, until somebody decided it wasn't really reasonable, or it was maybe a bit dangerous. We might all die on the plane or whatever, and the company would be gone. But we gave in to reasonableness and we stopped doing it. But actually we're bringing it back, because it was one of the things that people said, you know what, that's a peak moment. We all think we're rock stars when we fly to Barcelona to go to our villa and have our Christmas party. Reasonableness and data and stats might tell you that that's actually an inefficient use of company time, people out of the office, it's dangerous, blah, blah, blah. But actually it's a really important thing. So I think, all the data and all the efficiency is really important, but we need to remember, how do you capture those things that actually make a peak difference to people? Sorry.
Absolutely. I think what's being shared here when it comes.
Are you saying you sing to all your new hires now on their first day?
Bizarrely, occasionally I do, amongst other things. But yeah.
What we're really saying here is how to make it more human and how to use the AI to automate a lot of the processes, so there's more space to create some of these peak experiences and moments. Amazing. So we'll move on now to the second part around the employee journey, which is all about engagement. So we get these people in, we give them a fantastic onboarding through singing, and then what does engagement look like? So let's launch the second poll, which is to better understand what information sources do you rely on to accurately measure employee engagement? So is it AI-assisted solution? Is it traditional employee surveys and questionnaires? Is it online sources? Is it all the above? Let's see quickly in the poll. So far, a lot of traditional employee survey and questionnaires. Some AI-assisted solutions also. Also, if you have any questions at any moment, please put them in the chat. We will have a 10-minute Q&A at the end, so we will read through all of your questions. So if you have questions about onboarding or engagement or any of that, please put them in the chat. And so most people use traditional employee surveys and questionnaires. Fantastic. So moving on to this part around the engagement, which is also directly linked to the well-being. How can you identify and address some of maybe the early signs of disengagement? Claire, what are your feelings around this?
Well, workplace burnout is more and more common these days. So when we think about disengagement and burnout and some of these really, challenging issues in the workplace, there's a recent Deloitte survey suggesting that up to a staggering 77% of employees in the U.S. experienced burnout at just their current job. And I think it's fair to say the world has not become less overwhelming as a place since that survey was completed in 2015. And as people managers, it's not always that easy to spot signs of disengagement or burnout. We can put measures in place so we can keep an eye on workloads. We can pay attention to the well-being of individuals, notice changes in behavior. Perhaps people are a bit more short-tempered, or, perhaps they're feeling more cynical, and that might come through perhaps in meetings. But It's vitally important as well to role model good behavior by clearly disconnecting work and home life. Something as simple as a Slack status update, perhaps when you're out of hours, and you're not to be contacted. This can have a significant impact in terms of respecting other people's time by showing them that you expect your time to be respected in the same way. And employee engagement is an effective tool. So whether you're using surveys, and there are lots of other ways to measure engagement as well, helping individuals feel valued and that their work matters, that actually is a tool to battle burnout and to support well-being. So employees who feel that they're getting fulfilling recognition are up to 90% less likely to report feeling burned out at work or feeling always on or very often expected to deliver work. So this is pretty powerful data coming from Gallup and Workhumans work together. Now we've also developed an enhanced recognition advisor, which builds on some of the other tools in our platform to detect bias and recognition messages and provide alternative language. And it helps with identifying disengagement early on, because if an employee is frequently being flagged as someone who kind of, quote, goes above and beyond, or who never disappoints, or who works long and late hours, for example, that kind of language can have a negative impact because it's about setting unrealistic expectations. So the system can flag that type of language, and the recognition advisor provides nudges, AI-driven nudges, to help you write a better message that explains how much this work is being valued, but without celebrating some of these more, let's say, less well-being enabling types of behaviors, right? And program owners can also be notified of where there are pockets of that kind of language emerging across teams, so they can take steps to address behaviors before they drive disengagement or burnout. So those are just a couple of thoughts from a recognition lens on that question, Katie.
Yes, anticipating it. And once more, that recognition, the importance of feeling recognized within the work, both in the onboarding, but also during engagement. Jake, what strategies would you say have you found that are very effective in enhancing employee engagement? So let's say we want to anticipate this, which is what Claire just said. What strategies can we put in place to enhance employee engagement?
Yeah, I mean, I look at this through a measurement lens again, which is probably not surprising to anyone at this stage. But I think, really understanding the why. And I actually think the way we finished the last section, or Vincent's point in the last section, is the perfect segue into this, which is that, human beings, when they're experiencing these things, they don't experience it in terms of numbers. Like no one's going to say, oh, my sense of burnout is at 68%. Like that's not how people, communicate. They communicate through sentiment and language, and they're saying things like, I'm really fed up with my manager who's always on my case, and so that presents like a real challenge for companies to capture that. Like we can get at the top level metrics very quickly and very easily. We've got such and such a retention rate. We've got such and such a rate of absenteeism. These are numbers that we can know and measure very easily in an organization. And they may indicate that we have some challenges in this regards around engagement and well-being. But when it comes to trying to address that, it's like understanding the why of those numbers. And that's where natural language comes into its own, because that's how humans express themselves. And one of the beauties of AI, and people will be familiar with this phrase now, LLM, large language model. The key phrase of these AI systems, such as ChatGPT and Perplexity and Claude, they're built on LLMs, large language models. The key word there being language. They're really, really, really good at understanding the human language and how we express ourselves, and then categorizing that. And so that's the missing link that was always there. Even when you directly survey people and you say, are you feeling burned out? Someone replies, yes. Like what does that actually tell you as an organization? Whereas now, because we can assess the way that people are expressing themselves online in various kind of forums, we can really understand the why, and we can say, oh, we need to upskill our direct managers to be able to engage more effectively with their employees, because that's where we're going wrong in terms of our engagement. So really it's about capturing that sentiment, that human language, and that explains the why behind some of these top line metrics. And I think that's the game changer. That's the really powerful kind of shift we're seeing at the moment.
So looking behind the metrics and seeing, okay, those are the numbers, but what's this really all about? Vincent.
Exactly. Yeah, I probably deal with our main focus for certainly onboarding, but a lot of what we do is in the recruiting / hiring space. So we get to talk to a lot of people, or certainly talk to a lot of people who talk to a lot of people who are leaving companies and joining new companies. And it's interesting when you hear why people leave. Obviously, usually because they hate their manager. That's usually number one. But two, they feel like there isn't a career path for them. They aren't being enabled. They're being micromanaged or whatever. Like typically, what people want from a job, aside from money, health insurance, all the things that you kind of expect, they want growth, purpose, belonging. They want to pursue mastery of something. They want to get better at something and be good at it. And they also want a certain amount of autonomy to be able to be allowed to do things and to be good at that thing and to own something and be recognized for that, which, we've talked about recognition. And I think, all of that's what the employee wants. I think we can enable, and AI can certainly help enable all of that and help it through things like, career pathing. AI can take an individual, look at their career and say, hey, here's where you could go. And I suppose coupled with that then is very, very personalized learning paths. What do you need as an employee to chart your way through this organization or onto future organizations? So AI can literally map out, here's what 50, you want to be an astronaut. Here's what 50 people like you did to get it to be an astronaut. Probably not 50 in the world, but here's a path, and here's what you need to do to get there. And here's who you should be talking to within our organization to get there. So mapping out, using the org chart within the company, mapping out who you should have relationships with and how you can network with those people. I think AI can really help build personalized paths for everybody to get where they want to be. And I think that then feeds back into, well, are people on those roads towards where they want to get to? And if they're not, well, we have a problem. That's where probably, maybe Jake's platform would come in and say, or maybe it's Workhuman would come in and say, this person is not on their journey. They're not even engaging with the learning that would get them on that journey. We've got a problem with Vincent. He's not even off the ground, never mind an astronaut. So I think tapping back into what people actually want from their employers and what they want from their careers, and understanding that is something that AI can really help us with, and then spot where we're falling down and give us reporting around, hey, 67% of employees are not where they should be at this point in their careers with this company. And that should be a red flag to then prompt some actions.
So using AI to have a clear career path, see where you're falling through. And this leads to the third part, which is around retention. So we've got great engagement, got them on board, got great engagement. And now how do we retain this great talent long term? So last poll here around retention, which is, what is your organization's biggest retention challenge right now? Is it identifying at-risk employees just before they leave? Maybe they don't feel they're on the right career path. Maybe they don't feel that sense of belonging and autonomy that Vincent just talked about. Or is it a lack of real-time data or at-risk employees? Maybe that lack of data, as Jake mentioned, or understanding why employees are disengaging, which is what Claire mentioned. Or is it just limited data to inform retention strategy? So let's see here. What is your organization's biggest retention challenge right now? So there is a lack of data, understanding why employees are disengaging. So this is maybe, as Jake said, being able to use LLM to actually identify their language to see, are they showing signs of being cynical or disengaged or not belonging or burnout? limited data to inform retention strategies. So we're getting some great answers here. Okay, so the majority is understanding why employees are disengaging. So it'd be interesting to analyze that a bit further and see what are some of the causes of disengagement. So briefly now on the last strategies here when it comes to retention, how can we use technology to help to predict and prevent employee turnover? Jake, you and the data, how can you use that technology to predict and prevent employee turnover?
And I think that question is summed up perfectly in the response to the poll there, which is that, like, if I have a retention problem, I might know that I have employees leaving. I know my employees are leaving, but why are they leaving? And frequently our last point of contact with an exiting employee is an exit interview. That's our last chance to kind of try and find the why. But and again, this goes back to humans being humans. Like a lot of times what you'll see is an exit interview isn't fully useful because it can be emotionally charged. It can, it's dependent on the empathy and the skill of the exit interviewer. Sometimes exit interviews don't even happen. So we just let employees leave and we never find out why. And that's our last opportunity up until now. I mean, it's very hard to find ex-employees and survey them and say, hey, why did you leave my company? But with the advent of using publicly accessible data sources like Reddit threads or like Glassdoor reviews, like Indeed, all these places where employees meet and discuss their experiences, and they discuss their experiences in previous employers. There could be a thread on Reddit, discussing, potentially going to work for a Big Four consultancy firm, and someone will pop up and say, yeah, I used to work for one of those firms, but I had to leave because I was totally burnt out, and this was the problem. Like you, up until now, would as the organization would never have been able to access that kind of information, but that is possible now with AI. Is we can gather all of that kind of sentiment information that's out there, even after employees have left the organization, and build up a much more clear-eyed picture of the why behind the retention challenge. And I think that can help a lot, because obviously we want to work that backwards and start correcting the problems. And I'm sure Claire and Vincent will be able to speak very cogently to those kind of strategies of what you put in place. But I always come back to understanding the problem really well first, and then working back towards the solution. And I think now being able to kind of access that information at scale, where previously our last point of contact was the exit interview, that's no longer the case. We have a much richer data set available to us now to help us understand the problem.
Yes, and there's so much gold also to be had from the exit interviews, for sure.
Well.
Great points. Claire.
Yeah, just to build on that, because I think Jake is making an excellent point, which is that there is a ton of data available in the public forum, and of course, retention challenges, measuring them is ideally about getting out ahead of them. I mean, while after people have left, it's too late. So you can learn, and apply perhaps to save some future people, but for the folks that have already chosen to leave you, it's too late. And that's where it's pretty exciting to look at recognition data within your company, because you can actually use the platform to serve up some of these insights in advance. So it's almost a leading indicator to help you get out ahead of retention. So because it's constantly monitoring the recognition messages that your employees are writing for each other, it can provide real-time insights. For example, it can show you how recognition has impacted retention likelihood. So where people are receiving more recognition, it's clearly a predictor of their likelihood to stay with your organization. You can also use our new AI assistant, which does exactly what Jake was talking about earlier with LLMs, to interrogate the data. So you can literally ask it a question, and it will review all of your recognition data and answer that question for you about, for example, who in your organization has certain particular skills you need to perhaps provide that next career step for them. Maybe you're looking for someone and you have a hard time finding somebody who'd be a good fit. A recognition, surprisingly, can provide you some insights in that regard as well, helping people feel seen, and also that they have that path to grow within your organization. And recognition does have a big part to play in terms of employee turnover as well. So with a culture of meaningful recognition, employees are 56% less likely to be looking for job opportunities, according to Gallup and Workhuman research. And it's generally still an underutilized strategy, I would say, for most companies, because only 40% of employees say that they get meaningful recognition from their leaders, few times a year, or even less in some cases. So if we get it right, the impact can be huge. And I'll just give you an example from one of our customers. So when LinkedIn launched their Bravo program with Workhuman, they found that they had a 96% retention rate for new hires who received 4 or more awards in the first year. And that was an increase of 10% in the first year of the program, actively using recognition as a tool to battle retention, if you will, to work toward keeping people, battle attrition, I should say, and retain the key people you want. So it's a powerful case study. We can talk more about it later if you want, but it's a really powerful, authentic data set that you have within your organization if you're leveraging a mature recognition program that gives you insights into some of these proactive strategies you can take maybe to head retention challenges off at the pass a little bit.
Cool.
Thank you, Claire, and apologies for my camera cutting out. It seemed to have changed automatically in the settings. All about technology mishaps. Fantastic. So this was a bit about the retention. And so now we're going to look at some of the questions that have come in. So they have a few questions that have come through. So when it comes to, there's a question that says, are Jake and Vincent addressing the same target audience? That is, I hear that Jake is addressing salespersons and Vincent all other organizations. Could it be differences, or is it more profitable to just see people as efficient revenue generators?
Yeah, I'll start here, Vincent, if that's okay, because I think I was really just using the example of hiring a sales team. I'm certainly addressing any and all organizations, and I was trying to make a sort of a broader point about connecting your onboarding journeys that you're giving to employees with outcomes that you will need from them as a business, right? So, you know, and that doesn't necessarily have to be salespeople selling stuff. That's just an easy example because, you know, it's easy to tell when a salesperson is performing because that revenue will be being generated. But it could just as well be a team of copywriters who need to produce content, or you know, artists who need to produce pieces of work that go into marketing materials. It's really just about making sure we're connecting those dots so that when we're designing onboarding journeys, we know if we're improving something. So is our strategy working? Are our employees becoming happier and more productive as a result of changing our onboarding strategy rather than just keeping things staying the same? That's really the point I was trying to make. But maybe Vincent, you'd follow up on that.
Yeah, I think your example, my examples, we were talking about the same thing, which is ramping people up to be efficient and engaged employees, right? That's the objective of hiring somebody. I don't think we should see them as efficient revenue generators. I think that's a bit dehumanizing, but I do think ultimately you want to employ people absolutely for their growth, but also to pursue the mission of the organization. And actually they're intertwined, because if somebody is bought into your mission and vision, and want the company to achieve, guess what? They'll be engaged. So I think giving them a good start, a good onboarding experience, thinking about how you reward and recognize them, driving all of that, and then having efficient metrics on what's working, what's not working. It's all in the pursuit of the same goal, which is the company's mission and objective. But if you've got the right employees and their ambition and drive and their sense of purpose is aligned with that, bingo, you're in business. So I don't think we're misaligned between myself and Jake. I think we just want it to be a good experience for people coming on board, that they ramp quickly and they get to be efficient. And guess what? Being efficient and having good purpose and feeling like you're a master of your art, that makes people happy, and then it makes people stay.
Another question is it's a bit of an uncertain time for AI. Where do we see this going in the next 1 to 5 years? Claire, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, it is uncertain, but what's certain about it is that it's rapidly changing, and that people are rapidly adopting it as well. So I mean, we saw from the poll at the beginning that although people have moved away from just using it as a toy and asking it fun questions, right? We're already seeing it adopted in daily work. People are using it much more readily. And many organizations have implemented training programs because they see that the efficiencies that can be gained from AI are something that may not be intuitive for every employee. And so they want employees to engage with AI and practice it and use it. And I think, maybe even just a handful of years ago, AI was seen as quite a scary potential thing. What is it? How is it going to take all of our jobs? And now the conversation is much more about what is the partnership possibility between AI and humans. And there's a wide acknowledgement that AI can bring us a huge amount of efficiency, but also that the human element cannot go away in that. And in fact, the most productive opportunities are the partnership that will exist between AI and humans. I think we're figuring out still what that looks like. But for me, as we look across the next 1 to 5 years, the golden bullet will be to figure that out. What is that optimal partnership? How can humans leverage AI to drive more humanity back into the workplace, not to take it away? So that would be my take on it.
100%. Does anybody remember when you weren't allowed to use calculators in exams? I'm old enough that there was, you weren't allowed to use calculators in exams, and it was even frowned upon using calculators full stop. Up to a certain point where they became accepted, and now it's like, that's not the important part of maths. The important part is understanding what, geometry or whatever, and all the things you can do with maths. I think AI is going to infiltrate every single part of personal life, but also our corporate life, and we need to become fluent at it very quickly. Fighting it is not, but to Claire's point, it is there to supplement, to make more human, make our experience more human, not less human. And if we can get it right and use the right tools, it frees up so much more time, because right now everybody is time poor, doing a lot of admin work, which will just disappear. But we got to get it right, and we got to be fluent, because otherwise we'll be left behind.
And Jake, maybe this one's for you. How do you ensure AI models are giving the best responses?
Yeah, I mean, that follows neatly on. I didn't expect to agree with Vincent so much on this panel, by the way. I was kind of hoping we'd have more conflict, but I do completely agree with what he's saying. And following on from that, it's about AI being a tool that humans use, rather than a black box that we allow to or tell to make decisions. And that's how we do it at Welliba. So when we're training our AI agents to go out and requisition all of this vast amount of data that's available in public sources on the internet, we as humans then interpret the outputs of that. And when we see things that are a bit unusual or incongruous or downright wrong, then we correct the model and we tell the AI agent that it got something wrong, and we try again. And it's a very natural sort of human process, this training and learning. But really it all comes back to having that human in the loop, and AI tools being exactly that, being tools that humans use, as opposed to things that we relinquish our responsibilities and our autonomy to. And that's that kind of scary thing that Claire has kind of referred to of Skynet, and are the bots coming for us all, and stuff. And I don't think that's really necessarily something to be afraid of anymore. I think it's going to be much more, it's just another tool in our arsenal, and humans will employ these in bad ways, as humans always do, but in lots of really good ways as well. And really that's how we ensure that the outputs continue to be good and improve all the time, is that human interpretation.
It's like our modern calculator now, the upgraded version. Fantastic. This has just flown by. Thank you so much for all your insights today on the employee journey. We've covered everything from the onboarding, the engagement, and then the retention, and then some Q&A. What is one last piece of advice you would like to share with the audience on this topic? Vincent.
I'll tell it. Sorry, stories. You know what? Using AI when it's appropriate and not when it's not appropriate. You know, don't use it when it's inappropriate. And I'm going to quick example. When you walk into McDonald's, I don't know about anybody else, but I like using the screen and ordering my food and getting my number and collecting the food. I don't need a personal human interaction there so much. But if you go to a Michelin star restaurant and you are ordering your food on the way in on a screen, I think you'd feel that's not an appropriate use of technology in that experience, because it's all about a very, very personalized, perfect experience with human interactions, and you're made feel very, very special. So there are times to use technology and use it really, really well. But there are times when it's not appropriate, and it has to be 100% human. So just use it when it's appropriate.
Fantastic. Claire?
Well, I mean, I think we've talked a lot today about how new technologies present, as Vincent has just said, powerful opportunities to create compelling experiences for employees. And I would encourage us to think about that employee experience as a key takeaway today, from automated onboarding messages to ongoing behavioral nudges that maybe help create a sense of purpose at work, really fueling that engagement and retention. And at the same time, recognize that all of those practices create a large amount of high quality data to feed AI models, so that we can take the data, we can interpret it and learn from it to provide actionable insights for our employees and leaders. So really leveraging recognition to build cultures of trust and respect is a huge opportunity for most organizations. This is a data set that I would say many organizations are under leveraging or not leveraging at all for many of the outcomes we've talked about on today's call. So we're sharing some of our research with Gallup in the interactions tab just now. And if you'd like to learn more about it, please go ahead and download that research and read about it. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I'd love to stay in touch after the call today and continue this conversation.
Fantastic. Jake, last piece of advice on this topic.
Yeah, really, and hard to kind of follow those two summaries because I think they're both excellent. But really to be open-minded about how we employ AI in the kind of world of HR tech. Don't be afraid to ask like really big questions, because that's what AI is going to help us answer. So imagine what you could do with the information if you were able to read every single thread and comment and reference to your organization made by employees on the internet. Like, a human being can't, and certainly wouldn't enjoy that task. But that's exactly what AI is really good at. So it's like you've been digging ditches with a shovel all your life, and someone has just turned up at your door and offered you a free JCB. Like, what could you achieve now with this great efficiency? And unlocking the insight from all of that publicly available data, like we've been discussing on the panel, just puts information in so much more context and empowers you as a business leader to make much, much better decisions for your organization, not just for onboarding and engagement, but retention and all aspects of people strategy as well. And it's really exciting because this wasn't possible even 3 or 4 years ago. But with these products now, it is. So yeah, just be open-minded and ask those big questions, I think is what I would say.
Wonderful. Well, many thanks to Vincent, Claire, and Jake for this fantastic panel today. And thank you also to the audience for fully engaging and being interactive with the polls and your full attention. And a big thank you to Enterprise Ireland and HR News for organizing this panel. Thank you so much, everyone, and wishing you a wonderful day.
And thanks to you, Katie, for great facilitation.
Thanks, Katie.
Thank you.
Thanks, Katie.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks all.
Bye.